The silent room. A young woman named Emma had just moved into a small, affordable apartment in an old building in the city. She was thrilled to have a place of her own. Despite its age, it was quiet, and her neighbors seemed friendly, though she rarely saw them. But there was something odd about her apartment. A locked door in the hallway that she had no key for. Curious, Emma asked the building manager about it. He seemed surprised and a bit uncomfortable, telling her that the door led to a small storage room. He said it had been locked for years and that no one knew where the key was. Best to leave it alone, he added, almost as a warning. Emma shrugged it off. But over the next few days, she began to hear strange noises at night, muffled whispers, light tapping, and sometimes even what sounded like scratching, all coming from behind the locked door. She tried to convince herself it was just an old building making old building sounds, but the noises continued, each night growing a bit louder. One night, unable to sleep, she pressed her ear against the door. She could hear what sounded like someone breathing on the other side. Nervously, she knocked, hoping it was her imagination. But to her horror, she heard a knock back, soft but deliberate. Heart racing, she stepped back, watching the door as if it might open on its own. The next morning, Emma called the building manager again and insisted he open the door. After some hesitation, he finally agreed, bringing along a set of old keys. The two stood in front of the door, Emma's heart pounding as he struggled with the lock. When it finally clicked open, the door creaked, revealing a small, empty room covered in dust. Nothing seemed out of place, except for one thing. Scrawled on the far wall, in faint, jagged letters, were the words. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. The manager dismissed it as a prank from previous tenants, but the fear in his eyes betrayed his own uncertainty. He quickly locked the door again and urged her to ignore it. That night, the noises returned, this time louder and more frantic. Desperate for sleep, Emma decided to stay with a friend. But as she packed her things, she heard something that made her blood run cold. A faint, desperate voice whispering her name from behind the door. Ignoring the pounding in her chest, she grabbed her bag and fled, not looking back. She spent the night at her friend's house, convincing herself that she was just tired, just hearing things. But when she returned the next day, she found a note under her door. It was written in a shaky, unfamiliar hand, reading only 3 words. "Why did you leave?" That night, she didn't go back. She packed her things, left the apartment for good, and never returned. She later heard that the apartment stayed empty, and the new tenants in the building often complained of hearing strange noises at night. The whispers, the scratching, and sometimes the faint sound of someone knocking from inside the walls.